Salutations, utopians. Hope all is well in your world. Global here. A lot of sports going on. Seeing some conference championships being played out. Uh, Duke, Virginia. Just finished watching Arizona play. Um, they defeated Houston. A lot of interesting prospects going into this year's draft. Lakers currently are playing the Denver Nuggets. Um, but on the topic of the Lakers, this video is about the Bam Adebayo Kobe situation. As you all know, uh, Miami was playing the Washington Wizards last week, and Bam uh, basically went off and dropped 83. You know, he had 43 at the half, set a franchise record for most points in a half. He's top 10 in the rebounds department right now, and in the NBA. You know, he's an Olympian, All Star, All Team, 5-time All Team defense selection. Um, so the guy is decorated, but um, it's a surreal experience to watch. You know, when you know who's in that echelon. It was Wilt Chamberlain and then Kobe, and you know Wilt Chamberlain's uh, accomplishments, Mr. 100 points in a game. You know Kobe, and then you have a guy like Bam, and it's cute. You know what I mean? Because obviously his wife is, or his girlfriend Asia Wilson, just coming off a championship, has scored the most points in WNBA history in a game. So Bam went out and finished second. Um, and so I know it's frustrating to watch though, seeing Kobe get past. Um, it does make you realize that you know life goes on, and it does make you feel in a state of shell shock that you know on any given day anything can happen, right? I think that's the most surreal thing about this record. uh, Respectfully, Bam doesn't belong in a discussion with those two. Great player, but he's not of that echelon. And then you think of all the guys in their prime window. James Harden in that Houston run, one of the most prolific scoring machines we've ever witnessed. Kevin Durant, hell, Melo. How many times have guys been in a position to do so and just said, "Nah, out of respect, I'm not in that category." And how real is a record if someone else can reach it and chooses not to, right? But it is kind of in a microcosm how NBA discourse works, how the NBA is ran, quite frankly. Just in the NFL, Saquon Barkley had a chance to surpass Eric Dickerson. He said, "No, no, thank you." You know what I mean? Running other running backs, Barry Sanders could have been the all-time leading rusher. Um, just sometimes it does feel like there's a division between young and old, a respect factor to legends um, in the basketball community. But ultimately, I don't think this was Pat Riley's doing. I don't think it damn sure wasn't Bam's doing. Bam was telling his teammates to stop intentionally fouling. And when you pair that with the fact I've never seen any clown behavior from Bam that would ever make you think that he would be like somebody that would do anything like that. Just anything that ever made you raise your eyebrows, like what's up with this. But um, it just sometimes those things kind of happen. But it does also speak to the fact that it felt like there was a statement being made by Silver in the NBA towards tanking teams, which is the Wizards have been on that list of teams that have been accused of blatantly tanking, along with other teams, i.e., Utah, uh, Brooklyn, who are not going out every night intentionally trying to win. And the NBA is in a flux. You got lottery teams tanking. You got contenders resting their players. You pay for league pass. There's 5, 6, 7, 8 games going on at once. So even if you multi-screen, you're still gonna miss something. Uh, and just ultimately who the algorithm chooses to favor on some of the social media platforms, and how mischaracterized big pages have a tendency of doing, how big pages tend to mischaracterize a lot of things. I was just watching right now. Somebody was like, there's this trending topic right now on Twitter. Oh, De'Aaron Fox chose to leave San Antonio. Yes, but context needs to be said. He wanted to be paid like he was a franchise guy. They offered him the same exact extension he got last time, so he left. And you got Pages talking like he just bailed on Sacramento. Context is needed, but that just oftentimes gets lost in translation. Um, Ultimately, at the end of the day, that man did what he was supposed to do, and this is just what it is. Sometimes, it just reminds you that you know times change, things come and go. Uh, does that mean Bam's legacy is the equivalent to Kobe? No. Now he wins a ring this year. Obviously, he starts moving up in discussions of all-time great power forwards. But you know, it sucks because he has to be torn down like this when it's really just him doing. You put me on the line, you got to knock those shots down, right? Um, the credibility factor with the league and all those other things because of his teammates were the one intentionally found. He's telling them no. And I don't know if Spo, and it's funny because I was watching an Amazon post game a couple games before that. Miami was playing, and Haslam, D Wade were on the panel and waiting for Bam. And Bam in the post conference, I think he passed the Udonis Haslam record, and or Alonzo Mourning, and he's basically telling him like uh, records are made to be broken. Spo, now that D Wade and they were asking him what is the difference now with Spo that D Wade and Haslam aren't there, and he said he's more vocal, he's more talkative, he shows more of his personality. And I think this was another step in that chapter where Spo was trying to form an identity, um, with the team in that locker room. Because he has been one of the worst coaches last year, before this year, last year. The situation with Kyle Ware, he was terrible that season. Not putting Kyle Ware in there as a rookie, starting him day one, and then he gets $100 million contract to end the year with Miami. And now you're looking, Pat Riley gets a statute, ironically, with the Lakers. And then a couple weeks later, here's, Bam breaking Kobe's record. And it's just like, everything is just kind of like, okay, I get it. The Heat are, life goes on. The Heat are trying to, build chemistry. Um, they have as good a chance as anyone to win the championship this year, even though I still question their point guard situation. Um, but, that guy just did what he was supposed to do, and it wasn't his choice. And I don't think he thinks he's in that category or echelon. But, it's just another instance where now these records just don't mean anything. Speaking on the topic of credibility, the game isn't played the same anymore. In Kobe's era, players were reverting to the sidelines to make sure they were running. It was plays being ran. You know what I mean? There was plays being ran. Every game, every possession up the court was a game of chess. Now it's just free-flowing, rapid-paced games. So that, guys, soon as you see an opening, the ball goes up. Positionless basketball. It just doesn't hold any meaning. And now that LeBron has passed Kareem in most field goals made, a part of me that night when he did it against, ironically, Denver, who they're playing, a part of me said, this was the last for me caring about records, collegiate or pros, in college basketball. I mean, in basketball. Because the game is just played so much different now. Even in the WNBA, you see all these records being broken on a daily basis, franchise records being broken. It just doesn't hold the same. Basketball is not being played the same anymore. It's not a chess match. Plays aren't being ran. Franchises aren't working in training camp on their playbooks. It's just free flow basketball. High pace, high octane, free flow basketball. Point guards don't run offenses anymore. They barely know how to hit a cutter. I see more dimes from centers than I'm seeing from point guards this year. Front court players are throwing more dimes in the backcourt. Backcourt players are crossing the half court line. First thing they're doing is locking into their shot. And we know what era and administration could, is responsible for that. That 0-2 is when it started to begin, where point guards just shamelessly crossed the half court line and just were looking to score. Like, why would I pass the ball or set up an offense? We can speed this thing up. Let's make the point guard score. And so now we got these guys are just, everyone's stats are hyperinflated. 20 rebounds, 30 points. Dudes who probably would be lucky to get 10 rebounds back in the day. You know what I mean? In a more half-court, sophisticated, nuanced, physical game. It's just not the same anymore. And so it's just a sign of the times. Nothing changes. Technically you're on the board, but nobody's ever going to confuse that. And that's no diss on him. Again, a well-respected player. Great guy for the league. Unbelievable professional. Never does anything in the news. What is there not to like about him? That anger is not with Bam, but actually the state of just the reality of basketball, life, everything in a blender, And so it's unfortunate, but that's just where the current affairs are right now. I could go on and on, but I'll just leave it at that. I'll try to do better next time, Utopians. Global. Out.